You know, when I first started growing a beard and I realized that I had this adolescent face, oh, he just looks like a little boy without his beard. I was, let me get manly. Manly! And what was the most manly thing that I could think of when I was putting beard oil on? Or anything to groom myself, because you get those wispy things sticking out. Like, they'd start looking like wires coming out of you. And then I found caveman. And there was a lot of things out there, all kinds of beard stuff. But then I found caveman grooming. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it, but anyway, I went to like shopcaveman.com and it was pretty cool. I wish that they would become more of a man's location, store for everything, man related, because men kind of need that. Like, women have that. Mac and Sephora and all these fantastic, but women, you know, they got it easy. Men, like you can find amazing clothes for women. We've got to stick to t-shirts and jeans. Now, that might be really cool, but okay, that's great. So what about taking care of ourselves, grooming ourselves? And I found caveman, and it made me feel more manly. I felt manly. Are we on? Is this thing actually recording?
I am recording.
He does this to me quite often. The thing is, we're not going to be able to sit here for one full hour.
This is a little test.
And we're just testing.
It's like...
That's right. Welcome back to the Everest Effect. I'm Robert Everest. Nice to be with you again tonight. This is an important night for me because tonight is a night that I get to talk to you one more time. And that makes me feel really good. And I think in the first episode, we talked a little bit about getting to know me. A lot of things maybe that you didn't catch or that you did catch, but we can start breaking things down because as we talked about in the first one, we're going to build a map together. That map is an important map for your life. It's a way for you to stare at yourself from the top down and realize that there are bumps and turns and twists. And you have to go over mountains sometimes, go across bridges, pay a toll, stop to get gas, make sure that your tires are looking good, put some air in them, check the transmission fluid, make sure the oil's good. These are things that you should be doing if you're going on a journey. And if you have a map and you're staring down from the top, it's so much easier to see exactly how to get to the destination. A lot of that is from your past. And those experiences are what makes you who you are. So on this episode, we're going to dig into the chemistry of getting what you want by utilizing tools, and we'll start carving out that map together. Are you ready? Because I know I am. I'm stoked. I'm like, woo! I can't wait. You know why? Because that's how I wake up in the morning. Have you ever done that? Have you ever jumped out of bed, put your feet on the ground, and actually screamed out loud? Probably not. You know why? Because of something we talked about in the previous episode. Judgment and restriction. Try it. Watch what happens. If that squeak happens one more time, what I'll do is I'll send a straw from here. It'll look like a scene out of Daniel Day-Lewis, and instead of it'll be the opposite. It won't be. Hey, can you, Levi? Can you pull up "There Will Be Blood" and show me the "I Drink Your Milkshake"? It'll be the opposite. If that chair squeaks one more time, I'm going to send WD-40 through a straw, but I'm going to do it like this. Like this guy right now coming up. It's hobbling.
My straw reaches
across the room
and starts to drink your milkshake.
I drink your milkshake.
Milkshake.
I drink it up.
I drink it up.
So I'm going to send a straw. Would you like to see me do that to Levi? Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic. If that squeaky chair goes off just one more time, I will get the straw. Let's go back to having fun, right? Here we are having fun. We're having fun, but there is a degree of work in what we're doing. Just setting this up was work. Getting it ready, being prepared, the steps of success. This was part of it, right? All the things we're doing right now. So when our parents would say that, or we learned it from somewhere, or we heard it, or we read it, I don't care how it's in your head, You saw it so much, it was in the echo chamber of your life so much, you forgot what it meant. And that's okay. Because that can change in a snip. Boom. Just like that. You can turn this whole thing inside out. Let's say you're at a job or career that you're not happy with. You're not entirely pleased with where you are. It's not what you wanted. It's not what you thought. It's not what you agreed to. It's not what you imagined yourself as being, but you're there. You could gripe about you being there every day. You could. And what would happen is you would begin to get more and more of exactly what it is that you're propagating. You're bringing up to the surface your disdain for where you are, and so you will get more and more burden where you are. That burden comes in a variety of forms. You pick it. The boss doesn't like me. I got in trouble. I got docked pay. They removed my hours. They added a giant workload to my desk. I stopped getting phone calls. Fill in the blanks. The burdens come when you don't like what you're doing. Okay, that's okay. Maybe you don't think it's where your final destination is, and that's really how we're going to convert. We're going to turn this thing around. I think that's the key. To turn it this way, it's literally, remember I always said, it's a flick of the wrist. It's just it can happen in an instant. So if we immediately take this moment and we say, I get up in the morning and I go to this miserable job, that I punch a clock and I perform some junior executive function, pushing a pencil in front of somebody's desk for them, not for myself, and I don't like it. How about if we change our thinking for a second and we say, it's not where I'll be forever. So right there, you have an escape route. You have a way out. That's relief, by the way. A way out is a relief. It really is. If you got lost and you were going down a deserted road, or you made a wrong turn down a dark alley, use that as a metaphor, you would be looking for a way out. So if you build, and then if you found one, you would have a sense of relief right away, immediately. Whew, that's awesome. I can't believe I missed that. That didn't happen to me, or thank God, right? What if we did that on the regular daily basis? We just looked at our life like, if I relieve some of that pressure of feeling like there's no way out of it, then I don't feel so confined. If you don't feel confined, then you're more free. If you're more free, you have less anxiety about a situation. And some people might argue that you need structure and you need this and you need that and you can't be dreaming all the time. Well, okay, that's fair enough. You shouldn't be, but as an adult, if you thought like a child but acted like an adult, then your productivity would probably change to something more positive and greater, and your happiness level would drive up, but your objective view of your life would change, and you'd become more childlike, and that childlike sensibility would shine through, and it would be harder for you to become miserable at what you're doing. So if you were to change something such as just simply saying, this is not where I'm going to be forever, just that one thing will eliminate that negative charge in you. It's funny because speaking of negative charge, I have studied theology. I've talked about that in my first episode. I studied theology, and one of them, I call it theology, even though it's Scientology, was Scientology. And I took on these tasks of learning different theologies because I did not want to be single-minded in my ability to understand what other people, cultures, religions, ethnicities, political environments were thinking. It's something that really turned me on as a person, to be able to absorb all of this information. So I didn't choose one. I never said that's a choice. I'm going to make it. I'm going to become a devout Catholic Christian like my mother was for, which is juxtaposed to her being an astrologer. But for all this extended period of time, I didn't do that. I chose, instead of a narrow field, I wanted to be I wanted to have a lot of knowledge in my mind. So, but I was always searching for something. The common denominator, the single thread, the one thing that makes rich man rich, because you'll find traits in things. Traits. In science, they would say that they're looking for this redundant thing that happens over and over and over again in order to assess that it is the proper, okay, we're going to say yes to this as science because out of 100 times it happened 90% of the time, and the likelihood of it happening 90% of the time made it probably the theory was right. So if we go to a place where we can become satisfied, just satisfied first, and we can release the negative charge, which is something that they talked about in Scientology. Releasing that negative charge. They called it engrams. Okay, L. Ron Hubbard, brilliant, genius science fiction writer in his early days during Pulp Fiction days, not the movie. And really fantastic writer. Wonderful, wonderful author. And futurist thinker, H.G. Wells, nobody knocked him, but he didn't start a religion, and also he didn't feel that his power as an energy source was so magnanimous that he was able to, convince millions of people to follow him, and he would be able to help them in some way. Where it went from there, by the way, from this probably inception moment, for those of you that may be listening to this and say, Scientology, oh my God, it's the hoogly boogly. Where it went from probably its earliest conceptual days is really hard to say that what his intention was. So try not to look at life so prejudiced and one-sided just because millions of people are telling you one thing, or the popular opinion is something that is more important than your own, because you came through the canal of life, when you were born alone, and you will leave alone no matter what. Your energy force will leave alone, at least in that moment of final, departure. So don't use the popular opinion when I'm talking about Scientology. I'm talking about not the fracturing of its philosophy, but its original sort of roots. And in there was this thing called engrams. And those engrams were this, if something traumatic happens to you in your life, that trauma, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean that you got into a car accident, but that could qualify. The trauma could mean anesthesia, because you're putting your body into a state of it's awake, but it's asleep. That's a traumatizing event. You cut your finger. It's a traumatizing event, but we have a nervous system that prevents us from dying from the excruciating pain of a cut on the finger. All right? And in their philosophy, it is in moments of trauma. Aunt Susie, my favorite aunt, said she was leaving the country and never coming back. Trauma. I just lost my girlfriend. Trauma. I'm under anesthesia. Trauma. I fell down and knocked my head into the wall, and I'm buzzing about a little bit in my head. Trauma. And in those moments, memories get absorbed into your brain. Only your brain is in a state of shock, and your nervous system is protecting you. It's protecting you from your heart exploding, right? So to speak, and dying from this trauma. It's preventing it. It's the impasse. And then what happens is this little file manager that's normally operating under a specific set of rules that takes data that you've learned throughout the day, and it takes it and compartmentalizes it for you unconsciously. That's the superconscious that we're going to talk about, by the way. That's always running in the background. It's like when you have a Windows program open and there's something running in the background. Apps are running in the background. They're controlling a lot of the surface, but they're doing it in the background. They're doing maintenance, et cetera, right? For the tech heads out there. I'm not a tech head, but look at the common denominator. And normally, you take your program in a computer, okay, this goes in this file, this goes in this file, this goes in this file. Well, Scientology, in Dianetics especially, right, that first book that really launched this philosophy of the science of the mind, before it became this giant, colossal religion where, you're always going to find bad actors, and I don't mean actors in Hollywood, actors in life. Always going to find them. Every organization has them. Every religion has them. Every tribe has them. Every civilization has them. Sorry, folks, they exist. Someday we might get to the point where we can eliminate them, but for now they're here. So, and they usually stain a lot of things that they touch. Fine. Okay, that's life. But Scientology says, when you have these traumatic moments, file manager doesn't know where to put your thoughts. It doesn't know how to take that billboard of weight loss and ignore it and put it over here in this background place because it doesn't matter. It doesn't know how to take the, this thing, whatever, you're having a conversation and you bump your knee and that conversation, is now distorted. The information in that conversation, your nervous system is confused. It's focusing on the pain on your knee. And so now it takes this information and it puts it in the wrong file. It doesn't know where to put it. That's what Scientology says. It doesn't know where to put it. So the information then is now miscategorized, miscatalogued. And at some point in the future, at some level, something can set off a chain of events that reminds you of a memory, and the memory surfaces. And it's called an engram. And that engram begins then to hurt your life. Makes you perform poorly. It makes you turn, let's say, Scientology says, let's say you're driving a car and you get into an accident and there's a paramedic and the paramedic stops and he leans over you and the paramedic happens to be talking to someone else. And you are unconscious from the accident. And the paramedic says to the other paramedic, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to leave her. I think she's cheating on me. Really? That's a great idea. Leave her. Your brain in the traumatic event was recording that conversation, but it doesn't know what the conversation is coming from. It's keeping you in survival mode. As complex as we are, Scientology says, but we're still not complex enough to be able to arrest a situation here and cope with something over here at the same time. Exactly the same moment, neurologically. So it takes this information and it just puts it over here, where it doesn't belong. And later on, one day, and that day, by the way, your windshield wipers were on, so you heard it was raining, so you heard there was a truck going by, so you heard there was sound of some music coming out of the radio, it was dun 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 dun. And this is what was happening while that conversation is going on, and your brain is absorbing all these details and it puts it somewhere. Later on, 5 years later, you're driving down the road with your girlfriend and it's raining and the windshield wipers are going and there's a passerby with his windows down and that song is blaring and a truck goes by and suddenly, this engram, this memory, this miscategorized thing comes surfacing up to your brain, to your conscious mind, and you turn to your girlfriend and you go, you know what? I think you're fucking cheating on me. I'm out of here. And you completely acted out of where did that come from? Where the hell did that just come from? How many times have we said that in our life? When I read Dianetics twice, once at 12 years old, I really didn't know what the hell I was reading. I was 12. It was 550 pages, and I was like, wow, I just read 550 pages of stuff. I have no fucking idea what it was. But later in life, when I got older and I read it again, I was fascinated, not just by the writing, slick writing, but by the information. And in some ways, it kind of made sense to me. Well, that makes sense. How many times have we said, why did I say that? Why did I just say that? Well, here's why. Because there's another conscious running with you, not just you. Hard concept to swallow it was for me for a very long time. But I had an advantage. I had the mom who was into metaphysics. So I had an edge to understand, not necessarily to believe entirely, but to understand. There goes that squeaky chair again. And Scientology said that if you could release the valve, if you could lift the engram up to the surface, then in some way it would sort of cancel itself out. You would discover that it was the accident that you were in and the memory of the person, and you would actually get to the root cause. And once you got to the root cause, it vanished. And because we're born with sin and engrams, and because other lifetimes before this one had engrams, right? Think about it. It's all about energy. The energy is transposed. If we cannot create or destroy energy, because energy literally exists all around us, kind of like God, right? You can't create God, you can't destroy God. That's the theological philosophy of the same information. Then, do you get where I'm going with this? Do you see the common denominator? Why it would make sense that if I have this experience, what Scientology would say, but I release the information, I cancel the negative charge out, it's like one opposing and it just cancels itself out, that I would then be better, but because we're born like that and because histories and civilizations before us had the same energy fields that we have around us, not electricity, guys, that we're plugging into the wall and we're generating electricity. That's not the only energy, right? We know that because in order to restart our heart, we have to pop it with a piece of electricity into this biological thing to make the heart occur again. We know that we need carbohydrates because of this electrical current, this energetic current that we don't really know exactly what the hell it is. So if we could release that charge, which is what they say in Scientology, and this is not a pitch for Scientology, by the way. This is just one thing that I learned along the way that was fascinating and had a common thread denominator to what I was talking about. If we could release the charge, L. Ron Hubbard said, you would get better and better and closer to becoming a Thetan, whatever that level is. That meant that you could think and behave like a god, so to speak. I want you to think that way. That's what that meant. That's what he was saying. When you get up to Thetan level, it's like, oh, I've arrived, I'm pure. I'm as pure as the driven snow all of a sudden. Why? Because I took away all of the negative things that would make me become a reactive person. That's why he talks about the reactive mind. I would become reactive to a situation. You know what? I think you're cheating on me. I'm out of here. And his philosophy was it came from something else that was distorted in your memory bank, and that surfaced, and you made this wrong choice. But if we can relieve it, take it away, you're going to make the proper choices. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's the same thing, just told it a little differently. If you could accept your life, agree to it. Agree to it. If you are a douchebag, say that I'm a fucking fantastic douchebag and I love myself and I know I am, and accept it instead of wondering why people don't accept you. And you'll find those that do. If you are in a miserable job, accept that this is not where I'm going to be forever. Find a way out of that self-deprecation that we do. Find a way out of it. And you relieve the pressure. The valve goes away. If something traumatic happened to you as a child, you don't need to sit in front of an auditor and have them make you hold tin cans to see whether or not some meter is telling you if your emotions are messed up or not. You already feel like shit. So agree to it and watch what happens. Get in front of the mirror and agree that you suck. That you hate yourself right now. That you are from a depressed family, that you were molested, that you were hurt. Go walk in front of the mirror, look at yourself, and agree to it. Because it happened. It's how you feel. I don't want to deny you that, and you shouldn't deny yourself that. We're just going to undo the valve. We're going to let some of that out. All of a sudden, man, you feel light. Why do you feel light? Because that is an exit out of this feeling. It's the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the door open at the dark alley that's got light in it that makes you feel safe. That's what this is. That's where you start. You start that way. So when I first got in here, I said, does anybody just wake up and go, woo, man, I'm having a great morning? That's because I have learned a way out of self-judgment and concern about whether or not somebody else was going to tell me what to do, whether or not my spouse was going to look at me funny because I wasn't going with the popular norm. I was a little bit different. I had a happy, I jumped out of bed and screamed. My neighbors were wondering if something happened to me because the walls are usually too thin. Everybody's so busy paying attention to everyone else instead of paying attention to themselves that they start to create the judgment that we absorb. But if we could release the valve, take it out, let the air out of the tires, it would be a lot easier to let it roll off our shoulders, right? Think about that. That's the beginning stages of you becoming the best you to achieve the most for you that you asked for. I've met so many people in my life. I used to do a lot of seminars, and the seminars were usually meant for corporations. They were corporations, they were stock brokerage firms. This was post my being the teacher of direct sales and actually having a workforce that would go out, pound the pavement with a product, take it from a manufacturer, cut out the middleman, bring it to the consumer at a wholesale price, and sell it with an indirect sales approach like the pitch that I shared with you yesterday. What we would do is give people a reason to buy. And there was a systematic formula to walking in with something, walking out with money, then training others to do the same thing, and so on and so on and so on, until you've grown to such a point that you're a wealthy person. That was the idea of that business that taught me so much about being, so much about how many people could be underhanded and how easy it was to take advantage of people in some respects. That's true. I'm transparent about that. There were so many times where I would question the moral aspect of what we were doing. And then I will never forget my mentor, my original mentor, who had his own problems. He was somebody that suffered from addiction and was trying to find his way out of addiction through success. And he struggled with it because it was the kind of addiction that's really hard to kick. It's not like smoking a joint. Let's put it that way. But his brilliance and his genius was in the way that he really thought about himself and about people. That was his genius. So while he struggled with addiction on one hand, his genius kept him just a degree above falling away to addiction. And then eventually he found his way out of addiction and was probably one of the most genius mentors that I ever had. And I remember walking up to him. His name was Mark. And I walked up to him. Mark Devine was his name. And I said, Mark, what we're doing seems a little immoral. I go out, I take this product, I walk into a door, I look people squarely in their eyes, and I give them this indirect sales approach. And when I do that, I'm lying to them. At least that's how I feel. I feel like I'm lying to them. And he said to me, why do you feel that way, Rob? And I said, well, because I do, right? I'm walking, I'm going, hey, how's it going? I'm with the contractors. We just got finished up hanging up the frame Monets and Van Goghs. When we did, there was 42 extra. And my boss said, let the rest of the people in the inside office employees grab them at cost. I'm not really good at this, but out of 42 of them an hour ago, I'm down to 6, and I take it out of my thing, and possession is 9/10 of the law. These are things we're going to talk about when I get into how to be a closer, by the way, because that's easy peasy in your life. Hold this. I take a piece out of the box, put it right in their hands. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Now they're feeling like they're feeling it. And then I begin to start popping things into their mind, things that they didn't think about, right? Because nobody wakes up on a dot on their head that says, I'm going to buy from Rob today. So I had to convert them into a buyer using other tools. We'll talk about those tools. One of those tools was the law of averages. If you see 100 people, 70 say no, 30 say what do you got, and 5 to 8 will buy every single day. Casinos make billions on it. We'll cover that concept. If you and I flip a coin 10 times, it's going to come up heads 7, tails 3, vice versa. The likelihood of it coming up one side every time is like 1,000 to 1. So that's a law of averages concept, something that we had to be ingrained in our brain. But we would go out, we would see 100 people and say the same thing over and over and over again, and then start using tools like pull it out of the box, put it in their hands. Possession is 9/10 of the law. But because they didn't have the dot on their head that said, I'm going to buy from this guy, I had to give them a reason to buy. Some people do need to be led to a reason for something. You know, when I was next door, this guy ended up taking 2 of them. He said he was going to use one for a gift, one for his girlfriend, and one for his own apartment he just moved into. Boom, boom, boom. Those were light bulbs I just put in this guy's. And I'm telling this to Mark, my mentor, a guy I respected. I loved him. He was the only person that looked at me and said, you know what? You were scammed in Hollywood, so what? Let's get back at life by being a success. Make success your revenge. So I really was impassioned by this guy. He's listening to me. I'm like, and then I go, so now I put ideas in this person's head. I just told him, another guy got it for, his wife and for an apartment and for this or that. And I just made him think about all the reasons why he could use it. Mark shaking his head. Right. I said, and then I go, how would you like to take care of that? Besides these other techniques, which we'll get into, on how to get them to tell you which ones they like. How do you want to take care of that? Check, cash, or credit card. Folks, do you see what that meant when I said that? When I said, how do you want to take care of it, it meant that you were no longer thinking about buying it. You were thinking about how to pay me. Right? Mark is just listening. Okay. And he looks at me and he says, Rob, can I ask you a question? If you go down to the local store and you want to buy this painting, and he takes one out of the box, how much is it? And I said, like that? Because they were beautiful. I don't know. Maybe $80, $60, $50, if I'm lucky. He said, how much do we sell it for? I said, $29. He said, when you give a deal, how much is it? I said, if they take the whole box, $23 each. He said, okay, are you giving them an incredible deal? I said, yes. He said, okay. So that's one check mark for the reason why it's okay. He said, some people don't know what they want. Can you figure out what they want? I said, well, in a sense, I give them choices like, which ones do you like? He said, right. So now you're helping them to make a decision that otherwise they may not be able to make on their own. How about this? Rob, did they have to get in a car, drive to the store, park the car, go in, pick the painting with nobody's assistance, go to the register, deal with a grouchy asshole behind the counter, pay for it, get back in the car and drive home? I said, no, I brought it to them. He said, right, there's another check mark. He said, so the way I'm perceiving it, Rob, is you're giving people a reason to use something that's fantastic, incredibly priced, and you're bringing it to them. What's wrong with that? Are you stealing from them? No. Are you overcharging them? No. He said, when you put on the TV and there's a commercial and it shows a new credit card and there's a hot blonde sitting on a Lambo, what are they trying to tell you? Are they trying to sell you the girl and the car and the image if you have the MasterCard? So you know what? He's right. He's right. So when I was in that business, eventually I became skilled at teaching others how to use the tools to get what they wanted in sales. And I ended up working for corporations. Lots of them. This was after post I left teaching guys how to go door to door and be hustlers. It was fun. It was exciting. It was probably one of the most exciting times of my life, as I said, but then it was time to evolve, to get in front of a group of 1,000 people, to do a seminar, to encourage new people in different fields that weren't just going to give this one singular sales approach, but use all the tools, take my toolkit with me, open them up, show people exactly how to use them, and then watch them become more successful. That was exciting to me. And one of the first things that I always stressed was, can you find a way to be happy where you are? Or at the very least, can you be content knowing this is not the last place you'll be? And that puts a smile on your face, because then you can skip with a little bit more stride in you to have fun, to be more productive, to let the energy in, to teach the superconscious of the things that you really want, to de-stress the situation around you. Things start looking different. Your life changes. Your goals change. You stop being left self-deprecating, and you start looking at yourself like you're in the morning and you wanting to get up and go, woo! Welcome. Good morning. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to be alive, because I want to remind everyone of this. This might sound grim, and I don't want it to. But every second of your life is truly a second closer to it being gone. And so if you could find a way to be so fantastically in love with life as you know it, you wouldn't find yourself at even one protest, for instance. Do you know why? Because you wouldn't be pushing against life. You'd be pushing for life, for you. You know, there's a metaphor in, have you ever been on a plane? So many of us have. Some of us haven't. I apologize. For those of you that have not been on a plane, it's truly an experience. Believe it or not, folks, there are people that have not been on a plane. For those of us that have, we go through this humdrum, okay, the flight attendants come out and they tell us all the things, the exits. Listen to these metaphors, guys. They tell us about the exits of the plane. They remind us that if we're going to sit in the emergency seat, that we're going to have to step up. And we better be ready to not be self-indulging and actually help others to get out of that emergency area. Pretty intense. And then they do something else. You know what it is? Tell you to put your seatbelts on, and one more thing. Let's ask my producer. Do you know what that is, Levi?
No.
It's when they tell you that should there be a loss of cabin pressure, these oxygen masks will drop in front of you. If you are traveling with a child, put your oxygen mask on first, and then put your child's oxygen mask on. The reason why I believe that metaphor exists is for life. Take care of you first and foremost before you continue to act and behave in this tribal mind. Unto thyself be true is one of the theological philosophies. Unto thyself be true. Because you are godlike. You are. We'll get into that. You really are. You have godlike powers. I told you, there's going to be an episode, the I Am God episode, and I hope you tune back into it, where I will show you the first chapter of Genesis. It says one thing that when it snaps into your mind and you get it, you may take this philosophy for the rest of your life with you, and it may transform you overnight. It did for me when I discovered it. And it's not religion. So we understand. It's understanding. If you could have fun and make that the first thing that you do, if you can get back to that childlike sensibility, just a little bit like we talked about in episode 1, if you could get off the bed and agree to your life, then you can make it fantastic right this second. You don't have to wait. You don't need a self-help book. You don't need a guru. You don't need God himself to come down and tell you. You need burning candle God inside to say, right now, right this second, I'm going to agree with myself about where I am right this second. If you have an addiction, agree to it. I'm not saying submit to it. I'm saying agree to it first. When you agree, it's an objection to life. And this is something from direct sales. I always pull from direct sales, this thing that I was highly trained in, brainwashed in, if you must know. Anytime somebody would give us an objection, the first thing we learned was to agree with it. You know, I got to be honest with you. I don't know if I really want this thing. I think I'm going to pass. You know what, sir? I totally agree with you. Or ma'am. And then we would find a way to wipe the objection away. Here's how we did it. In respect to direct sales, we came up with a solution. The solution was, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. Why do I agree with you? Because it disarms you. It disarms the situation. It releases the valve. And then I wipe it away with a great attitude. I wiped it away with another tool, such as painting a picture about the other guy on the other side of the fence. The grass is always greener. And then we used other psychologies to get back inside this guy's head that he wanted to be like someone else in order to get the sale. But the metaphor, the teaching in it, right? Look at that part of it. Not what we used. It was the release that created the opportunity. So if you released yourself from judgment, from restriction, from hating yourself, from hating your job, from hating your spouse, and you just agreed, you know what, I don't like my spouse. I don't like the current situation. You're going to find yourself not going, I can't stand this person. Instead, you'll convert that to, I don't know what it is. Maybe I do. I don't feel my love there anymore. And you'll slowly release the energy. You'll discover that charge that controls you evaporates, and then you'll actually start judging less. Maybe you'll even discover why you don't like him or her. And you'll find a way, because your energy rose, because your life rose. You're not apathetic. You're up here. Man, you're a human being. You are human. Do you have any idea what that really means in life? I don't know if you do, but here's what I know. That's like a superpower. Dominion over all living things and most inanimate things. We even almost practically can control Mother Nature. We're this close. Thank God we can't. Okay? Then we would just think we're too godlike. But you have it in you, this thing, this magnanimous thing, I use that term, in you. Well, what if you could release some of that energy? Because you're human, you're superhuman. Being human means you're superhuman. No matter what your circumstance is, release the negativity by taking away the restriction and the judgment and agreeing to whatever it is that you have now. That's the first step to creating that map. If you could do that today, tomorrow, when you wake up will be different. Try it. Do something outside of your comfort zone. If you're uncomfortable being comfortable with yourself, if you're uncomfortable with your body, get naked every day in front of the mirror. If you are afraid of heights, go to the tallest building and get to the roof and stare off the top. Do something that's going to release the valve. And you will find yourself becoming more closer to the you that deserves to be as great as you are. Now that's it for this episode. But each time we get together, we're going to learn together. I'll be reminded, and I hope to share with you. We get once at this. Future life, past life, new life, whatever. The one that you're in right now, right this second. You get one physical body that looks just the way you are right now. one mind the way that it thinks right now. One opportunity to have every second of your life actually count. So why not make it the best that it could ever be? I'll see you soon. This is the Everest Effect. I'm your host, Robert Everest. I look forward to our next session. How was that? How was it and how long was it?